You are listening to the Crypto Hustle with Eléonore Blanc, only on the CoinSpice.io podcast network.
Okie doke. So we're here with the inaugural episode, and basically it's our turn to kind of step outside of the usual banter, and in my case, from behind the news desk out at CoinSpice.io and the CoinSpice podcast, put some skin in the game, get my views out there, but more importantly, introduce the community and the ecosystem at large to someone a lot of people already sort of know in this space, and that is the great and wonderful and talented Eléonore Blanc. And Ellie, tell us a little bit about yourself, and it's great to be doing this with you.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. This is truly a pleasure to be here and to start this podcast with CoinSpice. This is truly something quite different that I wasn't expecting, but very exciting.
Yeah, it took us a while to get you over here. Lots of, we'll just say that lots of, I don't want to say millions of euros, or I should say Bitcoin Cash or whatever it is, exchanged hands. But yeah, it took us a lot of convincing to get Ellie over here, so we're very lucky to have her. But anyway, for people who don't know you, I know you're very well known to a lot of the Bitcoin Cash community, but just in case they're hearing your voice for the first time or trying to put you together with a face and so on, who are you?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm that known, first of all, but I would start by just saying that I've been cryptoing, blockchaining for a couple of years now, and have felt in the space head over heels, and then was very lucky to be part of the meetup scene here in Amsterdam. And that's where I learned. That's where it started for me, is just peer-to-peer, right? That's how it goes. And then I went on to work with BT.com, and that was really amazing time working there as their content and community manager, learning so much about, well, crypto in general. I suddenly was, behind the blog, and I was the one who had to write these articles informing our users about, wallet updates or what was happening in the development world in crypto. So I was learning a lot. And then a year ago started...
This is at BTC.com?
Yes, BTC.com.
Okay.
Mining pool, wallet, all of that good stuff. But a year ago, all of that ended, and it was about, okay, I love crypto. There's no way I'm going anywhere else. How can I stay here? How can I be relevant? How can I leave, a print on this space, but at the same time to stay true to myself, I guess, by stepping outside of a company and creating my own. So I created Crypto Canal to do marketing and business consultancy for the cryptocurrency industry here in the Netherlands. So that's been really exciting, and working with different companies like Luno and OKX, and recently with Cyber Capital. So that's all my cryptoing, let's say, CV out there that people might know me for, or they might have worked with me on different projects. And it's been a whirlwind of meeting people. And, just in crypto, there's something quite special about when you work in this space. I think you create sometimes, not with everyone, but you create sometimes really long-term bonds, because you realize that the people you're working with, you share a common vision, a passion, and it can really create beautiful projects. And with that passion, I think that keeps people in this industry motivated and connected.
Yeah, I like the contrast between us, because I'm here in California, United States, and I too have been involved in the crypto space for a few years, but I'm on just the news side, and I love your practical application of it, but also the fact that you've written and blogged and had to explain things to people, but also the fact that being in Europe and really where I first encountered you, where you came into my orbit, was through the hackathon that you participated in a while back. And that has become something of a legend, because the peer-to-peer cash community was able to snag a few Ethereum developers from there. And
yeah, we did.
Yeah, and then like Roscoe Callis, and that led, of course, to some others, and Cash Script, and all sorts of wonderful things.
The BCH Hackathon was really a highlight for me. It was
October, was in Amsterdam, right?
Yeah, that was October 2018. we were 2 weeks away from the BSV hard fork, which we didn't even call that at that time hard fork, because at that time, there was no split. Remember,
there was, people were still talking about, no, it's not, it's never going to split.
At that point, we were like, no, it's going to be all good, no worries. And we, that was still the hope. And that was 2 weeks. I mean, even though I think in the back and, in the backstage, more things were happening, but at least on the front page, or at least on the community side, I would say that people were still believing that this might be still okay. It was a dormant serpent, I guess, that hard fork a little bit. But at the same time, that event brought so many people together. It was what was it? I think it was a 32 nonstop hackathon. I slept there. I remember we had all these different teams from all over the world, and it was just like people came together. And indeed, and I won't say that we snatched Ethereum developers. Let's just say that developers were attracted to a blockchain hackathon, and we had said that, you could build a project over any blockchain, really, even though the prices were in BCH. But Roscoe and other developers did come from an Ethereum, let's say, background. And the winning project was Panda Suite, which was inspired by Truffle Suite, which is, toolkits for devs on Ethereum, which allows for, better development on BCH. So that was actually the project that won. And from then, for example, Adrian Barvicki, who was also part of the hackathon and also part of the winning team, actually led on to Honest Cash. So those are also big actors today, I would say, in the Bitcoin Cash ecosystem. And Roscoe is doing amazing work with Cash Script. So building new, or, for high level programming language for BCH. So that's really cool. So Roscoe's doing an amazing job, and many other devs out there. And I really think actually the developer community is, coming to BCH and realizing that there's many things that they can do with BCH. So I see also the rise of other developers, or like Tobias Ruck recently that you've interviewed, I believe. I saw it just recently. Yeah. So that was an amazing event. So I look forward to seeing more hackathons and more things like that in the future. That's for sure.
I hope so, but that was due in large part to your efforts, and I know a lot of people came away from it saying that it was very well run, and they appreciated the opportunity. So very, very cool.
Yeah, I think at these events, I think what's important, and whether it be a hackathon, a conference, or a 10 people meetup, you always have to create an event that people can remember, but that they can also learn from. So I think we wanted, first of all, in the first part of the event, was to bring content forth and, and have speakers and have people who can inspire the developers, but also mentor them. Companies that just throw hackathon and, huge cash prices. As a developer nowadays, you can go to, there's so many hackathons out there. And where do you want to participate? Where do you want to spend your time? Where do you want to spend your weekend? What tech do you want to learn? So for any events, basically, you want to make sure that your audience just has fun also, just get some moments to share, to be inspired and feel like they're part of something. So that's also something that I always think about when organizing events, or whether you're a developer or a mentor, everybody should bring something back from that event.
Yeah, and I'm thinking just as we're talking about it, having a hackathon in Europe with the Bitcoin Cash community and fusing in some Ethereum devs, there's an ethos in both communities that kind of gets to sort of Szabo's code is law, right? So that create a project, a blockchain project, or a cryptocurrency that sort of defies law, that just cannot be touched. And now, a year and change later, Europe is in the throes of, I think it was Friday, it basically sunsetted, and then today, Monday, is where we're speaking from here. On the 13th, they have finally implemented the fifth directive of an anti-money laundering law in Europe, and considering your work with Crypto Canal and exchanges and businesses, especially with developers creating all these cool applications and all these different ideas. Is there a danger, a very real danger, that that could just be snuffed out through regulation?
I think what's happening right now is just that, as expected, and we knew that this day would come where regulators and just in general financial institutions would regulate the on-ramp from fiat to crypto. It makes sense. If I didn't expect them to stay idle a very long time. And this is just a new wave of regulation that is hitting custodian wallets and exchanges operating in Europe. And then each country in Europe can sort of apply the directive as they wish to. So for here in the Netherlands, I can just say that some businesses have raised their voices and have stood up and tried in a way maybe to lobby against this, and we're expecting a different outcome, mainly by defending the innovative space that the crypto scene has led to here in the Netherlands. So we've had many different businesses here that have been on ramps from fiat to crypto, allowing people to buy and exchange cryptocurrencies. And they were not so strict on their KYC AML, right? And those companies want to still offer those services, but now are running into the question of maybe they need to leave the Netherlands, should they stay? So this is up to each business then to decide. But I think in the general scheme, I think people just will find a way to to buy and exchange cryptocurrencies. Regulations will, of course, maybe bring more structure to the ecosystem, but in the end, cryptocurrency was always made to be peer-to-peer and to get rid of the banks or middlemen or a third party. And we are today in our industry relying on massive third parties where people leave their cryptocurrencies there and don't own their private keys. So this, I think there's just, the pendulum keeps swinging, and right now this will probably just affect custodian cryptocurrency providers such as exchanges and wallets. So let's see, maybe the future will be even more decentralized, or people will back away a little bit and come back. I think it's always a matter of back and forth, and we keep learning. And with regulations coming in like this, again, it brings us back to the fundamentals. Let's go back to the fundamentals. Is this about exchanges and being able to sell cryptocurrencies on exchanges? No, I think there was a bigger political motivation behind peer-to-peer electronic cash. So
that's it. I think it's fascinating. Yeah, right. When I was at another news desk, we had a few Europeans there working, and I've never really thought of myself as an American. I know that might sound weird, until I started working with people from all over the world, and then my Americanness started to show. I say this a lot on the podcast proper, the CoinSpice podcast, is that Americans, there's a stereotype that we're kind of insular, sort of a large gated community. We lack sort of cosmopolitan sophistication, and I think there's some truth to that, in the sense that I didn't realize how American my outlook is. It's hard to, without going too far down this rabbit hole, to think of an American as one thing. There's 350 million of us, and we're spread out across thousands of miles. So we're not really one thing. But one of the characteristics that I brought as an anarcho-libertarian leaning American is this complete hatred for, a loathing, almost pathological loathing. I'm not afraid to describe it as that, almost a religious, antipathy towards regulation. And my European counterparts, who basically were more or less fellow travelers, so we barely disagreed on anything, they seem less offended by regulations. And I'm wondering, is it as cultural as I'm making it out? So here in the United States, I'm in California, the Wild West, and that strain of thought that I have worldview-wise, just abhors, just finds any regulation from motorcycle helmets to whatever, not the wisdom of wearing, say, a motorcycle helmet, but the fact that mommy or nanny or mom or grandma or whomever has to push it on us by force is sort of the ultimate point. Whereas I think Europeans are way more, so depending on how you look at it, more pragmatic or more brainwashed when it comes to this. What do you think? Are you guys a little easier about regulations coming, or is it fatalism, or are you just more practical?
I'm not sure if it's such a broad comment to make on regulations from such a niche industry, like to compare maybe how insular the Americans are, or maybe how political systems have evolved here in Europe. But I do think that here there is still a very strong trust in our institutions. America was maybe built on different values and different, maybe something that characterized America more was the idea of liberty and freedom. And, your founding founders were all about giving that liberty to people. Whereas in Europe, we haven't gone through that yet, really. We haven't.
That's interesting.
I don't think we've had the French Revolution, and I don't think this podcast is supposed to be a whole history lesson, but of course we can always draw from history. And right now, there is some relative political stability here in Europe, I would say. Very relative, considering, Brexit or things like that are questioning maybe the identity of what is the EU and what is it to be a European, and to see the results of this vote, which is still unraveling. I was watching a comment the other day about Brexit, was saying that if in hindsight we consider this, or actually for certain participants today, they consider this a like a revolution, this only cost one life. Apparently only one PM got assassinated after Brexit passed. If this is independence from the EU, and this is not a common narrative that you have out there, but if this is a form of, like in a couple of centuries ago, Scotland wanted independence from Britain, they would have marched, an army there to say no. I don't think that today we would do that same. Mm-hmm. I don't think that in today's world we would send any armies to, what if, Italy, Portugal, or Greece at some point, what if they decide to fork off? I don't expect, people to send an army to bring them back in. But this is not what's happening. Just
to push back for a second and be rude and interrupt, what about Catalonia and Spain? Right? Like that's not peaceful, right? I mean, they literally started breaking heads there, right?
Well, there, that was they would consider that internal politics, but I'm not expecting like the European Parliament to pass a budget to send or for NATO to intervene or anything like that. So
that's interesting, but it may actually go to your point now that I think of it, because you have these, if you're making this point, the larger sort of 28 member states tend to be a little softer touch, whereas when it's within your own locality, you tend to be, not you, but the state maybe tends to be a little bit harsher on these things. That's really interesting. I literally, this is the first time I've ever thought that out loud, or even thought it, to be honest with you. That's a really
so there's just different levels. So there's different types of legislations in Europe, and it depends on how each country enforces it. So a directive is then it's up to the member countries to, actually apply it to the ground. And actually in the Netherlands right now, they said that it would, so that the 10th of January is when it passed. Companies are supposed to have registered with the Dutch central bank and done literally like apply basically to be able to offer their services, but it hasn't been really clear on how they would implement it. And there's like a 6-month window. And so let's see, this is still a conversation that is happening here in the Netherlands. So I'm definitely keeping an eye on it. Many people are interested in seeing how this will develop, especially what's interesting in Europe is we have different companies here very close to each other that are competing at the same time to be, a hub for innovation or for technology. So there's a lot of things at stake depending on how a country applies a directive or not. For example, with with the London scene, the Berlin scene, the Paris scene, or look at what's happening in the Crypto Valley in Switzerland. So all these different cities are quite, in Zug, or let's say, but yes, Zug, but Zurich, and to just compare these different countries and how they welcome, let's say, their blockchain space. Mm-hmm. Do they see an added value or not? There's already been a company an exchange out there, I won't name them, but who just announced that they were going to just change legislation and go from the Netherlands to Panama now. Is that what everybody's going to do? I don't think so. Mm-hmm. But that is one way of dealing with it.
Voice and exit. That's what we always say in the libertarian sphere. We say you have those two things. You can make your voice known and protest, or you can, vote with your feet.
Yeah. So I think the Netherlands have done this cost benefit analysis, thinking, okay, how much are we going to lose versus how much will we win by implementing this regulation? So,
and is it maybe correct to say that maybe some businesses, worried about a crackdown or whatever in the crypto space are kind of like, well, we know, like you say, we knew this was coming, we know it's coming, but at least now there's some clarity so they can plan and do what businesses do?
I'm not sure if there's that much clarity. I feel like even though regulation might bring more clarity, it's still up in the air. It actually creates more insecurity because regulations keep changing. Is Malta the place to be? Is Panama the place to be? Is Zug the place to be? Depending on your model, depending on what type of wallet you're building. Maybe today you're collecting data from your customers, but in the future you don't want to. So what type of product are you? If you're selling crypto or just talking about crypto, those limits have not been clear. They're trying to make them more clear and clear, but things keep on changing. We keep on innovating. And so I think I really appreciate, I think that was 2 years ago when one of the Conseil Fédéral from the Swiss government was saying we won't regulate because we don't know enough right now. Mm-hmm. No to regulation until you understand the space.
Wow.
And I prefer that. I would say that was such an open statement, and that's so appealing, and that's why there is today, I would say, a blockchain ecosystem in Switzerland, because of that type of statement, which are welcoming businesses. And saying, let's see how it goes. Let's see how this unfolds. Maybe this is too short term. It's not worth it. Regulation wise, just implementing it. I mean, first of all, you have to create the legislation. What does it entail? And then you have to implement it. And that's like a whole other thing. And it costs a lot of money as well. What is the cost of this regulation for the institutions? And considering how, I'm not going to say how they flip-flop. I shouldn't say this, but it's more like, one day Facebook bans everything about crypto. Next day they launch Libra. And that's from a company. And the European Parliament is also toying, not with, what was it? It was Christine Lagarde, but now she's with the FME. But everybody's toying with the idea of launching their own cryptocurrency, right? Mm-hmm. So at the same time that they're regulating, they're also kind of saying, maybe we should launch a stable coin. It's like, really, guys? Like, it's like, at the same time, I think a lot of eyes are on our industry and might be inspired by innovation that is coming from the crypto space. They're trying to regulate it, but I think it's maybe a bit clumsy, but let's see, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this brings actually a lot of clarity to the market, and then everybody knows where they are, and people are more protected, but I'm more skeptic, I guess.
Yeah, same here. Well, I'm glad we found a commonality between the two cultures here, the US and Europe.
Yeah.
But culture,
or maybe I'm not that European. That's maybe the problem.
we'll make you a Yank yet.
Sure.
So culture is super important, and I think as we just demonstrated, or you did, that it impacts everything and how we see the world. And if we go from the macro then sort of this big concept of the continent of Europe and how it's dealing with cryptocurrency, we can now kind of move to the micro in the sense that the Bitcoin Cash community and its culture has been the topic of hot debate since
ever.
For months, right? Forever.
No, we've always liked debates. That's in our...
We definitely like debates. And it's somewhat come to a head in the last couple of days here with Amaury Sachet, the lead developer out at Bitcoin ABC, the reference implementation for Bitcoin Cash, and Roger Ver, who of course is known as Bitcoin Jesus and the executive chair out at Bitcoin.com. They'd had some exchanges back and forth and seemed to be not speaking, and it was getting more and more and more inflamed, and accusations and finger pointing. And then something happened, and I'm not sure what caused it, but sort of the first step in the direction came from, if I have to be completely honest, I did not think it was going to come from Amaury.
Come on.
I did not think that. I didn't think that he was incapable of reconciling. I just didn't think he would make the first move. So anyway, so I'm being cryptic here, no pun intended. What did Amaury do?
He just wrote an explanation, just giving his side of the debate, of his conversation. And I think that already for anybody in this space, I mean, imagine, I don't know what it means to be in these guys' shoes, right? To be maintaining a protocol, working and being the CEO of Bitcoin. No, well, not anymore, but being behind Bitcoin.com, and these two guys are very important for this space. We have to recognize that these are part of the leaders, part of our ecosystem in Bitcoin Cash. And when we look at the position of these actors, the fact that they are airing this in public and being public about their conversation and trying to bring this, to make more sense of this publicly, I think is really honorable. I mean, I can't even imagine, airing out anything so publicly. And I remember also Amaury making also a public statement about BU in the past. So actually that's why I'm not surprised that he's open. And I've seen also posts on Red Cash, and this has been something that I wish we could see even more. I just want people to be more and more open with each other. And if we have this kind of, insight into people that are leading and making big decisions for Bitcoin Cash, this gives me hope. I really appreciate actually the article you wrote about it. I thought it was really, it's quite new. We're more used to having open clashes in Bitcoin Cash, and it's refreshing to see two people just trying to be like, okay, we recognize past from, things that I've said in the past, or things I didn't do well, or how I spoke here, or what I said here, and to actually try to air this out in a positive, constructive way is, well, of course I support that kind of approach. I think this is constructive.
Yeah, and hopefully that becomes the story. It's because drama is so addictive, and toxicity is really a drug. And usually what happens in the cryptocurrency space is people are censored, they're thrown off of formats, they're thrown off of social media, they're blocked. And the Bitcoin Cash community was kind of stuck there in a good way, in the sense that because it had itself forked off from BTC and claimed all sorts of censorship, then to do likewise would be at the very least hypocritical, if not just, suicidal. So in a sense,
I think it's,
go ahead.
No, I think it makes sense from our past, and how it's part of maybe this community's identity to, be very wary about censorship. And we want to make sure that there is no, core situation. And I think this is something that is okay to recognize. These are not bad words. We now all agree on the history, so now we can just move on and learn from it. So I think it's quite new, this way of dealing with problems and contentions between actors that in the past people would know of and wouldn't realize. And this is being actually quite transparent, may I say. of course, this is, we only, this is also, again, a glimpse into a relationship between two people, but it looks at least promising. So let's see what the future holds.
Yeah, and the process that it took to get here is, I think, another story, in the sense that allowing Roger and Marie to voice their opinions, whether it's on YouTube through a video, blog posts, Telegram, Reddit, and not censor them, even though it was uncomfortable, especially for someone like me who likes both guys. And, especially someone who, or I can only imagine for a lot of people who love the idea of peer-to-peer electronic cash, going, oh no, not again. And seeing these two guys, fight for months.
No, they care too much.
Huh?
Amaury and Roger are two people, I think. I've never met Roger, but from what I've seen, and I've met Amaury a couple of times, but these two people care, and when I see them disagreeing over things, I'm like, okay, they have, different priorities, their jobs are not the same, they're not taking care of the same things, but they both care about peer-to-peer electronic cash at the end of the day. So there is common ground. There is hope. These guys can work together. So I know that this is maybe hopeful thinking. We're like at a first stage. We have yet to see, the comments about this. I think we have to like step away from a sort of finger pointing situation and just, make peer-to-peer electronic cash, be real for anybody who wants to be part of this. May it be a developer that wants to code it, someone who wants to use it, someone who wants to trade it. We have to be able to offer the full scope. And as a protocol-based layer, there's a lot of responsibilities in maintaining and developing that blockchain. It's not idle. It will keep changing, will keep evolving. There's a roadmap and more things that might be added to this roadmap. So let's see on that side. And on the other side, I think Roger's doing a lot of things, and Bitcoin.com has been such an important actor, stakeholder in the BCH ecosystem, that all these actors have to find a way to cooperate and work together and put differences aside. And I know it's tempting with social media to get a bit petty, and sometimes you're a bit tired, and sometimes when you comment, you're a bit like, yeah, whatever. But from both sides, what I see right now is people trying to work together, and that's inspiring.
It really, really, really is. I was taken aback because I was starting not to believe anymore in the whole, permissionless idea, and I was like, maybe we should have, kind of a monarchical structure of some kind where someone owns it outright and makes decisions and throws people this way and that way. But here we have.
No, we can do this. And remember, this is just an ongoing social and economical experiment. So, hey, we're learning. This is decentralized governance, or somehow governance of a decentralized blockchain in action. We are literally on the front row of seeing what it means to be, having businesses and having developers and having, code interact with real life, and then wallets questioning, developments there and how everything can work together. And hey, it's a lot of work. And we're just both here commenting about it as non-coders. So we have no idea what it represents to do all of this. We can only talk about the benefits, and we can only say that the tech is here. We have already borderless peer-to-peer electronic cash that is cheap, that is fast. So we have something. And now what we're arguing about is how to make it better. I mean, come on, this is also, if you spin it that way, that's quite positive. We're now trying to make sure that this stays and remains and, is something that we can have for generations. We're really just in the beginnings. And this is all at play. And Bitcoin Cash is just trying to offer a different way to scale. I think that is part of the narrative, and that's something that Amaury and Roger have been both adamant to remind people of, is the value that there is in this blockchain that was, when we forked, it was for ideological reasons. we go back to the block size debate or the block size wars. I mean, we go through all these shifts in paradigm, but in the end, we have a different value proposition here. We want this to be for people, and it has to, at foremost, it has to work. It's not just a store of value. It has to be like a functioning, full-on blockchain that will in the future encompass many features. So I'm excited to see the development of BCH, not only the development, but the maintaining as well of the protocol. And I look forward to see companies like Bitcoin.com and others just jumping in and offering more cool services for the industry. So no, we have to look at these two people. And of course, as you said, going from macro to, let's say, our micro BCH politics, keep an eye on everything from EU reg to what's happening in the actors of the BCH ecosystem.
Well, I don't want to get too ahead of our skis here, but I think we have just recorded the most important, best podcast ever in the history of human civilization. I think I could say that objectively. I've just done the math as you were talking. We have solved all the ecosystem's problems.
Done.
If anybody, Christine Lagarde, whoever, needs to call us,
they can. Yeah, we have everything. You want to buy some BCH? You want to develop on BCH? Like, call us. We can just orient you guys to where and who you should talk to. There's so many amazing people in this space, and we are both lucky to have knowledge of these people and what they're working on and how driven and passionate they are. And I keep being inspired by this community. It's just, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. And when I see now all the meetups flourishing all over the world, it's also beautiful to see. So I have high hopes for Bitcoin Cash, especially after such nice news today of seeing leaders like looking at each other and saying, hey, we can work together. There's no need for forking here. There's no need to stir anything. And yeah, that's just, we're keeping an eye on it all, I guess. And the community is lucky to have a front row seat to all of this.